Welcome to the Feel Well podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lauren DeCicco, and today we have a very special guest. We have Coach Lauren O'Hanlon. She is an alcohol freedom coach, and she helps people live a fuller life without being controlled by alcohol. Today, she is here to discuss with us the science of alcohol freedom and give us insight and tools on how to tap into a whole new perspective of health and wellness. Welcome.
Thank
We're so
you.
excited to have you here.
Thank you.
So for me, one of the biggest things I want to understand from you, and I think this will resonate with a lot of different people, is your journey. How did you go from someone who had alcohol in your life regularly? You didn't necessarily have a quote unquote unhealthy relationship with it,
Right.
but you did discover that you were being controlled by it. So how did you go from that to where you're at today?
You know, first and foremost, it was the awareness of it. So, I lived a rinse and repeat lifestyle as a bartender for 20 plus years. And I saw nothing wrong with it. I had a lot of fun, and yeah, like you said, I grew up around it. I thought that's what adults did to unwind after a hard day, to relieve stress and things like that. And so living that lifestyle, just thinking that alcohol, that like if I was stressed out, that I was supposed to grab that glass of wine. And then over time, it kind of, became, it was still so accepted in society. And so, yeah, I guess for that transition, it was the awareness part of it. I started learning, I found a podcast and I started learning so much behind it.
Yeah, so I think that the norm is to go home and have a glass of wine, especially if you've had a long day or even have earned it in a sense.
Exactly, 100%.
It's used in so many different ways. Earning it as a celebration, as a way to unwind and things like that. So was there a very significant turning point for you where you felt that it wasn't really serving you? In the way that we thought it was supposed to,
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess to answer that, I will back up just a little bit, like, and go a little bit and more into my story, in terms of, I used it in my 20s and 30s just for fun, for celebration, again, living that lifestyle, and met my husband when we were bartending. So it was just a very alcohol soaked, life at the time and relationship. And then I got pregnant with my babies and had them both like within the same year. So I really shifted from one, just always out, always, living that type of life, to all of a sudden being thrust into the stay-at-home mom culture. And it got lonely. It got sad. It got, to where I kind of felt like I was landlocked just in the house. And that's pretty much where I started being introduced to the mommy wine culture and how prevalent it is in society. I mean, I knew all of the moms that would have cocktails with me when we would have play dates. I would, bring a mimosa to the playground for absolutely no reason, just because.
Well, I think a lot of people can connect to that because there's something to be said about being out socially with alcohol. And then when you don't have access to that anymore, either because you shifted because you're a parent, or even COVID's a good example, how much drinking skyrocketed because we weren't able to go out and socialize with others. So our way of making it seem like you were still doing something in a way was to do that at home.
Yep.
Or low key at a playground or whatever. So it still felt like that you were experiencing something.
Right.
But you were just replacing the experience with alcohol.
Right. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head with COVID too, because that's when all of a sudden you could get drinks to go. You could, it was no longer this, faux pas to like have one, at the playground or whatever, that's just what people were doing. We were keeping our distance, but we had our cocktails. And then, to have all of the, I mean, I had so many Zooms set up with like girlfriends and family where we would have cocktails over the Zoom.
On the Zoom,
Yeah.
on a computer.
Right.
Just to have
Exactly.
it.
Just
But it
to
felt
have
like
it.
social connection in a way.
100%.
In a way. It's a replacement for it, though, essentially.
100%. And
Essentially.
you know, it was when it was deemed essential, you know, it's like we can't go anywhere, but we can go to the liquor store. And the liquor store would be packed during COVID. And I mean, I was there constantly because I mean, what else do you do during the day? And that was a lot of where it got ramped up because so in 2020, my kids would have been 2 and 3. And it was as everybody knows, it was a really, really hard time. And to have those young kids and not be able to go anywhere, to like literally tell them that the playground is closed, you know, and so yeah, that would be a lot of where my drinking ramped up too, was for COVID. And luckily, my husband and I, we have a natural pet supply store. And that was deemed essential also. So luckily we were able to not have to close. But that also meant that he was gone a lot of the days, you know,
home.
and I
Yes.
was home and not able to go anywhere with these kids at this point. And so it was like, what do you do? Again, you drink. And so you know, that shifted kind of for everybody. And then all throughout, and you know, I'm comfortable talking about this now. It's taken me a little bit of time, and I have full support from my husband behind this too. Our relationship was always very tumultuous with alcohol, and it was like a perfect relationship by day. And you know, I know that everybody says, "Oh, it's my relationship's perfect," but like it was no fighting, it was none of that stuff by day. And when you added alcohol to it, it was so bad. It was so bad. And, you know, around that time is really where my drinking started shifting, you know, because this had been over years. But drinking for me was no longer fun. I started going from drinking for fun to drinking to cope. And I noticed that once it was a drinking for cope, it didn't really matter what time. So once I started going back to work at our store just a couple days a week, when the kids got a little bit older, it didn't matter like if it was a Saturday morning and, you know, say that we were in a fight, I'd grab a bottle of champagne, not to get drunk, but just to numb out throughout the day.
The
Just
uncomfortable feeling.
yes, to not feel my feelings. And so that's kind of where I think that was your original question even, was how did I notice like when it started? I think that when the relationship got to the point where I just couldn't be in it any longer, and needed at that point alcohol. And I didn't have to wake up and drink. I didn't have any of that, but it was like if I was feeling uncomfortable, that became my go-to. And, you know, I like to say that I was responsible with my kids and everything like that. But the truth is that, I mean, there's really no great amount to be responsible around our kids, like in my case, at least.
And sometimes it's not about being responsible as far as being able to take care of them physically and
Correct.
whatever. It's really about the emotional connection and your emotional availability to those around you. And
Right.
if you are using any sort of substance to sort of numb in a way, you are not don't have full access to that,
Right.
to anybody, even to yourself. Like you're
Right.
even really kind of trying to disconnect from yourself at that point too. So can we talk a little bit about the mechanism of how alcohol works on your system? Because we can use it in a way, I mean, that the idea behind it is it kind of takes the edge off a little bit. You can be a little more free. You can access a little bit more fun. So in some capacities, maybe people can be a little more connected because they don't have as much maybe social anxiety or whatever. That's the fun side of it, right?
Right.
But even that is still kind of taking away from yourself a little bit in
Right.
a sense. But then it's a really fine line to where we start going into the other side of it, where we're using it to fully numb so we don't feel the unpleasant sensations and emotions in our lives, and then we just kind of cope with it day to day, no matter how much you're using it, even if
Right.
it's once a month. but you're using it with the intention to do that. So subconsciously or consciously. But what is the science behind that? How does it work on your body to bring you into that state?
So when we take a drink, and this was just blew my mind. When we take a drink, it releases dopamine. So it activates our pleasure center. Now this dopamine, our brain doesn't tell the difference between, dopamine from, do exercise or anything like that, or artificial dopamine. So it releases dopamine, and it gives us that pleasure, that, buzz feeling that we have. And what I had no clue about was that buzz, that initial buzz, literally only lasts for 20 minutes. It lasts for 20 minutes. And I always tell people, I'm
Really,
like,
just 20 minutes.
20 minutes. And I will challenge everybody to, after you have that glass of wine, how do you feel 20 minutes later? Usually what we do, though, is we've already had another drink.
Right, because we're chasing that.
We are chasing that.
Because we don't realize what the short lifespan of that is. Do you know off the top of your head how long dopamine lasts if you were to go exercise?
I do not. I do not, but that's a
know.
really good question. Yeah, I do not. But at that 20 minutes, what that also does is that our bodies start to release dynorphins, the adrenaline, stress hormones. So, but we don't notice it because we've already had a second drink. So thinking back to it now, like if I would go out and I would have a couple margaritas, or something like that, and then I would stop, I would go about my day, I didn't feel great, like
No,
you
you
would get
crash,
tired.
you feel-
Yeah. It's just like, bleh. So when you're doing it either at night or if you continue to day drink, like I definitely did at the beach all the time, you don't notice that. And so for the next, so we said that it's 20 minutes before these stress hormones get dumped into you. Those stress hormones will last in your body for 2 to 3 hours. And that's per drink. Okay. So then
So you have dopamine for 20 minutes, but then you have those stress hormones for much longer than that.
For much longer than that,
Okay.
2 to 3 hours. And that's going to be per drink. So you have your second drink, it's not just like, oh, that's factoring into these 2 to 3. No, now you're at 4 to 6. And so that's why when we drink at night and we wake up the next day and we feel that anxiety, we feel that like depression, that sadness, that's where it's coming from. It's the alcohol, like it's our body trying to purge this out of us.
So are those hours compounded then? So if you go out and you're out really having a great time, lots of drinks. I mean, some people I know will go 2-3 days of just like not feeling good after because they're still trying to recover. Like you can just tell chemically they're still trying to recover everything.
Right. I noticed that like the older I got, the longer the hangovers would last. But it was also too, my tolerance was so high at that point too, because it was like, I used to have people tell me all the time, like, I had no idea that you were even drinking. And like, I would have been blacked out. Like they had no idea. My tolerance got to be so high just from, the bar industry, taking shots behind the bar.
And high functioning.
Functioning,
with it. Yes,
exactly.
Because you were doing your career, or your job and performing and whatever with that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You had that down to a science pretty much.
I did.
So
I did.
And how about like, how does it start to affect our hormones? Do you know? Because I also feel like with age, and I've heard this from a lot of females, especially females going through that, like into those hormonal changes, that age bracket of going into like perimenopause, all of a sudden cannot tolerate alcohol anymore. But they keep trying.
Right.
Because they're socially, culturally, like still trying to stay in it.
Right.
But they'll say 1-2 drinks and they feel terrible.
Right. And that's the thing. It does, like, I don't know the science behind the hormones, but I do know that, like, you're right. It affects our hormones because it affects every single thing in our body. It affects everything in our body when we drink. It's, it's linked to 7 different cancers. I had no idea. They're just to get off topic for one split second. My older sister, she passed away from cancer, and the doctors told her, when she and my dad had cancer. Luckily, he beat that. But for both of them, actually, the doctor said, don't drink alcohol, don't do this. And I'm thinking to myself, my sister was terminal. We knew that. Why would you take that away from her? Like, how can you tell her? I had no idea the correlation between the two. I had no idea what it was doing inside of our bodies. This is another kind of random story, but it has to do with the society part. I used to I used to bartend with one of my girlfriends, and she got really sick, and it was alcohol related. It was kind of shutting her body down. Unfortunately, she ended up passing from it. And the ironic part is that for her celebration of life, at the bar that we used to work at, I walked in and everybody was taking shots in her honor.
Really?
And I'm like,
but it's when you think about it, like right now, that seems so opposite of what you should do. But in the moment,
like if I didn't know what I knew, and actually at that time was at the beginning of me questioning my relationship with alcohol. So while I didn't take the shot, I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is something I would not have ever thought of before. I would have taken the shot, and then I'd taken another shot, and then thought that I was honoring her or something ridiculous like that, by drinking. And I hear that from a lot of clients, like that somebody's parent or loved one passed away, and so it would be rude of me to not go have a drink with them.
Well, you think about, what if someone passed away from lung cancer? We're not going to sit in a room and all smoke a pack of cigarettes.
Right.
So, but that's interesting, because I think that the cultural and societal norm towards and feeling towards alcohol is like, if you're the person in the room not drinking, that's the only thing that you get questioned about. If you're doing drugs or smoking cigarettes or whatever, why are you doing that? But if you're not drinking, what's wrong? Why aren't you drinking?
It's the only drug that you have to justify not taking.
Right. So let's talk about the culture and how it's hardwired into so many things, or like secretly infiltrated and everything. Even like you said, the mom culture, like, oh, it's wine time.
Yep.
Just a parent.
Yep.
Just a parent. Or my kids are going crazy, so I have to have a glass of wine in order to handle myself. So that's pretty obvious. What are some other things that you've noticed where it's like just slipped into?
It's, the more clients that I work with, the more I find that it is, and this isn't necessarily slipped in, but like people think that it is going to be impossible to not do a champagne toast at a wedding, or, and it's so interwoven in terms of like
traditions, rituals, culture, society.
Yeah. Society is, we celebrate it if we're happy, if we're sad, if we're stressed, if our team wins, we drink. Bored, 100%.
Boredom, I think, is probably the number one.
That's a huge one. I talked to a woman yesterday who is, I think she's up in Minnesota, and they had an ice storm, and she was like, there was just nothing else to do. It was so boring.
Florida, hurricanes.
Right, exactly. Hurricane parties. I'm originally from Kansas. We would have tornado parties. Like, you lock yourself in your closet and you drink. And I just think baby showers, funerals, all of these things. It's like we are welcoming in to, and when I was in the hospital after I had my kids, I was like, oh my God, I could use a drink right now, like in the hospital. So it's really everywhere. And it's really, it's like you said, we're not going to all light up. It's if I had quit smoking, nobody's going to be like, oh, come on, you can have one, right?
Right.
Like nobody's going to question it. Yet at the same time, alcohol and nicotine, they are both group 1 carcinogens. So, that means that it is studies have shown that it is toxic to human beings. And yet you'll see a commercial that is like very shows the effects of what cigarette smoking does. And, these like just these horrific commercials. And then the alcohol commercials, you are all celebrating. It is a celebration, but it doesn't go to show. I saw this video one time. I wish I could find it again. I've tried, where it shows the alcohol commercial. Everybody's having a great time, whatever, loving life. And then it shows the after effects, the domestic violence, the car crashes, like for me, it was losing my phone, losing my wallet, like waking up and being like, okay, what do I have? What did I lose last night?
Retracing your steps.
Right.
But then I feel like, in like college years, we would think that was hilarious.
Exactly.
And when you really look at it, it's not.
No.
So let's get into, we understand like the physical stuff, the cultural stuff, that really on the big scheme of things is there's not much benefit from this.
Right.
So I think a lot of people are waking up to that, but a lot of people don't know where to start or kind of teeter on like, do I really want to give this up or whatever? But when you're coaching, what is the alcohol freedom part of it?
Well, the beautiful thing about the methodology that I'm trained in is that it's based on how you feel, as opposed, it's emotion based as opposed to behavior based. Okay. So how do I want to feel about alcohol? Like, and we always say we want to make it small, and well, I say we as in like, who I coach, make it small and irrelevant in your life. You can take or leave a drink, and by choice you leave it. And so when I say emotion based and how it's about how you feel, there are other options such as AA, such as rehab, which if those have worked for people, I find that so beautiful. The thing with those, or the difference, I guess, is going to be those are behavior based. You are taking away the substance, but you are not doing the work to reframe your subconscious, because all of this stuff is sitting in our subconscious. Like seeing our parents drink after work, seeing, grown-ups celebrate with alcohol, seeing these commercials, this all cruises back to our subconscious and it sits there and it becomes a belief. So what I do with this methodology is we pull those from the subconscious and we make them conscious. And then we start to go through like, alcohol makes me happy. Well, okay,
Does it
here's
really?
right. Here's some evidence to show that, scientifically it actually doesn't. And then also, if you want physically, like, are you happy the next day when you're hungover? Are you happy?
Are you happy
with
20 minutes after?
20 minutes after? That's exactly right. I mean, definitely.
That's a really
try it.
short-term window of happiness.
Right.
Right. And I think too, like I've talked to a lot of other adults about just simply asking the question, like, do you even know what makes you happy? And a lot of people don't know because there's alcohol there releasing their dopamine for them.
Right.
So they're like, did the activity that I just did and the people I'm around make me happy? Or did that one drink make me think that it did? So no one can really connect to what is actually truly making them happy. And when you take that, anything that gives you really fast acting dopamine releases without any sort of healthy dopamine comes from a hard, challenging activity to get the dopamine release. That's really how we want to do it, right? But anything, even scrolling on your phone, drinking and things like that release it without any sort of work for it,
Right.
Starts to make people, believe like that's what makes them happy.
Right.
And it's just a false chemical reaction, really.
Right. Exactly. So. It's like, was it the drink that was so happy and fun, or was it the people that I was with?
So what do you find is what are the common challenges that people come to you for, of like when they have decided I really feel like alcohol is controlling me and I want to be in control versus the alcohol. And so what are the biggest like challenges that they're concerned with in the beginning?
Well, so for me and for Michael, it's all pretty much the same. It's like, will I fit? What will my friends think? That was my big one, because I was in the bar industry for so long. What will my friends think? Will I still fit in? Will I get invited places?
Will I belong?
Will I belong? Exactly. How will I deal with, stress?
Mhm.
You know, my kids are driving me nuts or something like that. How am I going to take that stress away? And it's the reframe takes time, right?
Mhm.
Like the reframe, the
Because
learning.
that's subconscious, right? So
Exactly.
you're hardwired to that. So and it takes
Exactly.
a certain amount of time to intentionally practice the
Right.
new storyline to hardwire that into your system.
Right. And you know, that's what I like tell clients is that we try things on. You know, we just one at a time. And you know, one thing that I do want to say too about the methodology I'm trained in is it's so awesome because say we use the word data point as
Mhm.
opposed to you know, slipping up or made a mistake or anything like that. We
Mhm.
we say data point. So say for example that you are trying to go 7 days without, you know, having a drink.
Mhm.
And day 5, you get in a fight with your spouse or your kid is driving you up the wall or, you know, your boss sucks, whatever it is, and you have a drink. Well, it's not, you don't have to go back to that day 1. You know,
Mhm.
it can be like I have, you know, I'm on day 5 with 1 data point. So
Okay.
then you look at what did I learn from that?
Yeah, you don't have so much of that frustration with yourself
Right, that
and
shame, that
that you have to
blame.
start all over again.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think people also wonder like, well, maybe I don't want to be fully
Right.
sober, but like you're just transitioning it so that people can understand that they're the ones that get to decide every time versus
Exactly.
alcohol deciding for you
Exactly.
or the event
And you
and
know,
deciding for
yeah.
you.
No, that's it's so true. It's just it's one of those things where you know, talking about not drinking alcohol ever again. Like I never say forever. I never ever say forever, even for myself, because
Mhm.
I can have a drink if I want one. Like I can have a drink. I just don't want one.
Mhm.
And that is it's an amazing place to be. It's a place that I never thought that I would be. It's a place that I never thought that I would want to be.
Mhm.
Because when my reframe kind of started going on, when I found this podcast that just changed everything for me, I wasn't necessarily looking to quit drinking,
Mhm.
but the things that I learned, the awareness, the fact that it causes anxiety and
I
depression.
think all the things you mentioned about the physical side of health wise what it does to people
Right,
and they don't really I don't think people realize that it's that detrimental,
right,
but it really is. Yeah.
right. And it's not your fault. You know, like that's the
Right.
thing. It's not your fault. Like the society and the physical aspects of staying stuck to it, it's not our fault. It's our responsibility, but
Yeah.
it's not our fault.
Yeah. So how do people work with you? What's the best way to get started if
Yeah.
you're interested?
Yes. So they can go to my website. It's Coach Lauren O'Hanlon. It's OHANLON .com. I offer a free 30-minute discovery call. It's just for us to chat and to get to know each other and to see what the goals are and, you know, to see if we're a good fit too.
Mhm.
And so that's the best way. And they can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Coach Lauren O'Hanlon.
Okay. And if people are starting to get curious about this, what is like the best tip you have for someone to maybe test the waters or
Yes.
try to like go over the hump to really decide that this is the right thing for them to do?
Yeah.
What do you think is a really good starting point?
So I just did a social media video
I saw
yesterday.
that
Yeah.
and I liked
And
that a lot.
yes. So if you're trying to go out one night, you know, you're going to the bar with your friends and you just want it one night of just trying it on. I would suggest, first of all, to have a plan, play your tape forward. If somebody asks you why you're not drinking, have an immediate response. It will take that pressure off of you and just have you feel more confident. The second thing would be to have a drink in your hand because people aren't going to ask you, you know, hey,
Mhm.
what do you drink it like, or can I get you a drink when you already have that drink in your hand? So if you can be up there and ordering first, if you're sitting down at a table, you know, and try ordering first, and that really sets the tone.
Mhm.
Um, the and always have third is going to be own your no, like no is a
Right. Stick
complete
with your
sentence.
decision.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Just it's just one night. And we're getting curious and
Mhm.
then have an exit strategy. If things get uncomfortable, if you feel that craving coming along, if you know that somebody like that shots are starting to flow or something like that,
Mhm.
it's okay. Like give yourself that grace to remove yourself from that situation.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I think that just being curious about it and like if from that night at the bar, what did you recognize? Like what did you see? When did those
Mhm.
cravings start to come up for you?
And not even what did you see in yourself? What did you see in your environment that
Yeah,
maybe isn't great for you that you thought was an
right.
environment because you were drinking and it seems so fun and whatever. I think those all of those things will shift too as
Right.
you shift your relationship with alcohol as
Absolutely.
well. What is the podcast that really changed your life that you were talking about?
It's called This Naked Mind by
This
Annie
naked.
Grace.
Okay,
Yes.
because that might be something that people who are exploring this would be really
Yes.
interested in learning
Yes.
more about because it seemed like it was really
It
life
was.
changing for
It
you.
was absolutely life-changing. It reframed entirely the way that I even think about alcohol. My friends are still shocked that I don't drink
Mm-hmm.
and I love it now,
Mm-hmm.
you
And
know.
any other books or resources that you think are really
Honestly, I would check that one out and Alan Carr has a really good one about alcohol. And then there's an Alcohol Explained book, which I
Mhm.
think I listened to that one on audiobook. Yeah, I
and
mean,
just talks about like the
it just
physiological and what
it
happens
talks
in your
about
body
like
and
why we want it. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't go trick or treating without having and I didn't need it to get drunk. I would just wanted that like
The
cocktail
cup.
because everybody else was. And yeah, so it talks about that. You don't have to have this rock bottom moment. Like
Right. And I think that's what people are waiting for to
right,
decide that
right,
this is the life change that I should make for myself rather
right.
than just like, no, this thing is actually controlling me.
Exactly.
Even if I
Exactly.
have one drink,
Right.
it decided for me.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
any last words or words of advice, takeaways for us?
Oh my gosh. Well, I would love for you guys to do the 20-minute test and see how you feel after 20 minutes. Um, See if you start to feel those anxious feelings creeping in.
Mhm.
And, I want to say to all of the other like Laurens like me out there that didn't have this rock bottom moment, that didn't have this horrible problem, that it really, it's okay to question it. It's okay to question it, and there's a movement going on,
Mhm.
and it is there once you learn the science behind it, once you understand other ways to, and I know you're huge into the central like regulating the nervous system, and once you find other ways to cope,
Mhm.
it's amazing. There's so much more to life.
There's so much freedom
So
and
much
power in
freedom.
that.
It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, that just gave me chills. So, well, thank you so much. That was
Oh, thank
amazing,
you.
so informative. I feel like there's way more we could discuss
Oh
on
yeah.
that. There's lots of rabbit holes to go down, but
Right.
thank you for sharing all of that. And I really hope this discussion changes somebody's life and they
Oh,
make
same
these
here.
decisions. So
Same here. Awesome. Thank you,
thank you.
Dr.